Hello and welcome to the AZ classes. In this video, we will discuss one of the theories of international trade known as product life cycle theory that you can see on the board. Author of this theory is Raymond Vernon. Okay. You must have gone through comparative cost advantage theory or Heckscher-Ohlin theory that explains respectively the basis for international trade and the source of comparative advantage. But it is argued that Heckscher-Ohlin theory does not explain many things, or it fails to capture the realities because it works with some restrictive assumptions. For example, technology is assumed to remain constant. The nature of the product that changes from time to time with the passage of time, or with more and more research and development goes into it, and even its intensity, factor intensity changes, that is not captured in Heckscher-Ohlin theory. Product life cycle theory seeks to explain this thing, that as to what happened that when factor intensity changes, or you can say when technology itself undergoes a change. Okay, product life cycle theory suggests that a product which is invented goes through various stages till it becomes standardized, and then when some other new product is invented. These four stages are initial stage, you can say, and the introduction stage, or when the good is introduced. Obviously, this introduction of the good or invention of the good is the result of the expenditure in research and development, and the new product comes. Initially, cost of production of the good has to be inevitably higher, because economies of scale is not available, because the level of output cannot be very large initially, because the good got just introduced into the market. The consumers are not aware of the product, so you have to spend a lot on the advertisement and on the promotion of the goods, so that your good becomes known in the market. Okay, then comes the stage of growth, that initially when product gets launched, efforts are made to make this product grow so that it could capture the market, and the cost that has been incurred on its introduction or its invention and for its promotion, and that should start recovering. So that stage, the introduction stage may not be a very long, because companies cannot afford. If any company that has launched a new product after inventing it, it cannot go on for long to produce this good when it is not catching the imagination of the consumers and product is not well received. And because initially cost of production has to be higher, secondly there has to be sufficient cost, or rather heavy cost, in terms of the marketing and the this advertisement. So this cost will also be incurred. Then slowly the growth starts picking up. When growth starts taking place, this company that has launched this product start gaining profit in that sense, and it starts recovering the cost. Okay, or it makes profit. And then the stage comes where this good attains the level of maturity. And some modification and other things might be the continuous process with the good, but the initial expenditure that has been incurred, that was heavy, and the good attains the stage of maturity, and there in a country that good production of that good exceeds the domestic consumption. So you have to seek the foreign market for that. So that surplus is available now for the purpose of export. So it is this period of maturity where this company can think of introducing the good in the foreign market, because in those countries that good might not have reached, and since the good was already in use somewhere, so good is not that new. Many of the consumers in those goods must also be knowing about it. Similarly, good has stood the test of the time. So in foreign countries, it will not be that difficult to promote the product as it is when the good itself is quite new. So in this stage, you can find the export of the good takes place from country of its origin where this good was originated or introduced. Then this technology proliferate in that sense, it becomes known, and many new companies come, even the maturity stage itself, that they also start producing, if not exactly the same kind of good, because that good might be with the patent or other things might be protected for its intellectual property rights or so. But there are other companies that might be through different process or the goods somewhat similar to that, they start coming into the market, because now technology that has promoted this, that becomes well known. Okay, and then product becomes standardized. This is standardized. Okay, now it is no longer required for more of the research expenditure to go into it. I mean, at least the heavy expenditure is not required to that, and the factor intensity changes from that of the R&D focused expenditure, which is basically a capital expenditure in physical and human capital both. And now more and more labor is required, and product becomes labor intensive. And it is this period when the product in that country where it was originally introduced, they are largely the countries that are capital abundant, and as a result they are R&D abundant also. That is, their research and development activities are undertaken at big scale by the companies. But these countries are not, or certainly not, the labor abundant countries. So obviously, if this country continues to produce the good, it will be producing at a higher cost. While good has become standardized in the countries that have the cheap labor, like the East Asian countries, South Asian countries, including India, East Asian countries like Taiwan and China, and there this good can be produced quite cheaper. So it makes sense for the domestic people to import the good rather than produce. I mean, for them also, if they want to continue with their product, they can get it outsourced or something like that. So for the country, it makes sense that rather than buying the domestic product that will be pretty costlier, it is better to import it that would be cheaper, because it is produced in the country where labor is cheap and the good requires more labor rather than the research and development expenditure on it. And that is the time when the country where it was originated, that its task is almost over, and then it will invent new thing, maybe drastically modifying the same good that would remain unknown, or that technology may remain unknown to others for some time, or the new product will be launched, and that will go through the same stages. So this can be demonstrated with the help of the diagram that I'll make here for you. Let me pick another color because the earlier. So instead of 4 stages, I will stick to only 3. The first 2 stages I'll prefer to merge with it. Okay, but that does not make any difference. Okay. Here you take time. That is, as time passes, as what stages a product goes through. Suppose here I make a curve which is the consumption curve. Okay, this is suppose consumption curve, domestic consumption. Okay, or let me add this, domestic consumption. Domestic consumption. So on this axis we are also measuring consumption and output. I'll come to output. Consumption and output. So initially the good that gets introduced goes through the same pattern that it gets introduced, and since that good itself, it coincides with this initially, or it may go right up to this, and then you can have this stage. This is stage 1. Stage 1 is where consumption and output, or the domestic output, are equal. Okay, so this is stage 1. Stage 1, which is characterized as the origin, you can say, origination of the good, and the growth. This is the stage where the good requires heavy expenditure. I mean, to begin with, heavy expenditure in research and development, heavy expenditure in marketing and to promote the sale of the good. Furthermore, when it comes to the average cost of the product, it has to be higher, because economy of scale will remain elusive for some time, because there is no large scale production, because many of the consumers do not know about the production. So you are supplying for a market which is initially not very large, so output cannot be very large, so average cost got to be somewhat higher. Okay, so first 2 stages that I have shown earlier, that is the growth and the origin, or the introduction. Origination, you can call introduction also, or let me call it introduction itself. Okay, that will be better, because introduction. Okay, so this is that stage. I mean, it should not overlap. This is this stage, or it will be intro only. Okay, so that it should not overlap. Okay, then comes the stage where it attains certain amount of maturity. Okay, that good or the product becomes known. It is well received by the consumer on the basis of the quality of the good, because research and development has gone into it, or because of the very extensive marketing of the product. Now good becomes popular and people started consuming it, and it enables the producer to produce more. Okay, and this increase in the output surpasses the domestic consumption. So this is the stage 2. Okay, this is the maturity stage. Sorry, I'm very sorry, I have written state. It is stage. It is stage. Okay, and this was this stage, and this is stage 1. Again I have written that, I might be the absent-minded, stage 2. And the characteristics of this stage is that here you can notice certain amount of surplus. This gap, this stage is maturity stage. Maturity, and in this stage output, domestic output exceeds domestic consumption. And this excess of supply, output, this excess of the production over the domestic consumption is exported. So this is the period when the good is ready to be exported. There could be various means of export. It could also be possible that the company itself start producing in other countries. That will also be possible, but we will take that, suppose the good gets exported to those countries because surplus is there, and by that time the research and development expenditure have also been minimized because initial expenditure have gone into it, and product is also well known, especially in today's world of communication and other things, and it is not very difficult for the good which is already in the market in one part of the globe to introduce the same into the other. So it will be exported. Then in next stage will come, and which is this. And remember, this is your consumption curve. And this is the stage 3. Stage 3. And this is the stage when the good becomes standardized. Okay, standardized means there are a lot of companies that started producing the companies, and when there is a bulk of this production and it would start producing in other countries also, the factor intensity will be changed, because now research and development activity is no longer required as far as that product is concerned. In order to produce it at the level where the economies of scale are also available, obviously it would require more and more labor. So the production will shift from the countries that are R&D abundant. The production shift, production gets shifted from R&D abundant countries to the labor abundant countries. That means if you continue to produce the good in the country of its origin where it was originally introduced, got invented and was modified, was taken to the maturity stage, there its cost will be more, because these countries are largely rich in capital that enable them to spend more and more on research and development and spend more capital on the promotion of the good, but they are not the labor abundant country. And when now the good does not require that much expenditure in terms of capital, it is the labor that would make the difference. So if you continue to produce in that country, its cost per unit will be higher, and it is therefore in those countries where the labor is cheap because they are labor abundant country. So this gap, or let me remove this consumption to write it here, domestic consumption. This is the domestic consumption curve. So, and this gap, if you extend this curve, this one. So this will enable, or this will result in, or this will make sense for the countries to import. So here you will find the good will be imported from labor abundant countries to the one that are capital abundant, or in other words you can say the labor abundant. Now if you just recall the developments that take place the world over, you may recall when the presidential election of the United States was underway, Donald Trump had promised that he would bring the job back to US. So how is it that jobs have gone out of the country? Because the product that was initially being produced in the country, now it's not being produced. It is being produced the other countries. So jobs in fact have gone out of that country to the one where labor is cheaper. So because in this country jobs are if at all they are available, obviously labor is costly because labor is scarce. So it makes sense for that. So a lot of economics is there that politics would not answer that question, and Donald Trump might have announced that they would bring the job back. Now the only course for that country to increase the employment rate, to invent new product, and that process goes on. This is the time when the developed country or the country where the good got originally invented, originally introduced, they would no longer be interested in producing that. Okay, or for that countries or the product could be the one that they would continue to spend only in research and development, and they would be getting the good outsourced from some other country. That is also possible. So you can notice that it is the nature of the good that undergoes a change, and that results in as to, or that basically determines as to when the good will be exported from the country and when it will be imported into the country. So in a sense, it determines the course of or the structure of foreign trade. So guys, this was the product life cycle theory, and I think it is sufficient as far as this theory is concerned. So thank you very much.